surprised if I told you that all three of these peonies were created with the same three color bases? This is Marla with Mad About Cards and Crafts. Welcome to the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. Today's video is all about color. I'm so excited to share how I layer color to create my own card stock. Here's a look at the beautiful Meraki Flora peony die. You can create a large peony or you can create smaller clusters with the buds. And the beautiful thing about this set is that it comes with the instructions. So here it shows you all the different layers. I'm a visual learner, so this is perfect for me. And it was easy peasy for me to put these peonies together. This is an amazing product. I think this may be my favorite card that I've ever created. I love this flower so much. So we talked about layering inks. I'm going to be using some distressed products today for my card. I have a watercolor panel. You can use mixed media cardstock or watercolor, something that's going to take a lot of water without warping. And I have spritzed with Distress Spray Stain and Saltwater Taffy. My first spray was further away from the panel. You can see that light application in the left-hand corner. And then I got closer, which is going to give me those higher concentrations of color. So you can control how much color is going down on your panel where you hold the nozzle. I like to dry in between applications. So I dried my panel and then I'm going to come in with a little bit of carved pumpkin distress oxide. And I'll add a little bit more of that saltwater taffy, keeping the application light, moving the colors in different areas on that panel. I certainly could have spritzed that with some water to get some more movement, but I really wanted to layer up the color. So I dried in between each of the applications, which allows me to continue to layer color instead of adding water where it's going to meld together. And we'll get to that in just a moment. So this is a newer product. It's called Distress Spritz. It's picket fence, or not picket fence, but picked raspberry is the color. You'll notice that when it went over top, it changed the tone of the orange, but it did not completely change the color. And you see on the bottom portion of this panel where that pink is really showing through, and that's because that was the white area and there was no distress ink already on it. The Distress Spritz does have some mica properties in it. It's the most translucent of all three of the products that I'm using today. And then finally, I brought in a mica stain, and this one's called Cocktail Party. It's very similar to the picked raspberry, but it definitely is not going to be as translucent as the Distress Spritz. So you're going to notice that when I did the splatters with the nozzle and I add that water, that I am getting a little bit more pink onto my panel. Those splatters are going to give me texture on my flowers, and that's what I'm looking for. You can see that I have a really neon panel. This is so pretty. Now, if you don't want it this dark, then you can certainly add more texture with water, which is what we're going to do. And we're just going to continue to layer. So I'm not 100% happy with where this is at. So I'm just going to use some water and the ink that's on my mat, and I'm going to do a little bit of tapping onto my card panel, and that's going to add an additional layer of color. It's going to add more texture and more movement. And then again, I'll come back in with some water and my microfiber cloth, and this time I'm going to lay it over the top and I'm going to pick up more of that color. That's going to mute it just a little bit more, tone it down, and then of course I'm going to dry in between. You can see that there's shimmer on this panel, and again, that's from the mica stain in the spritz and the mica stain that I used. That shimmer is absolutely gorgeous. And then I'm going to add more water to get different colors in different areas. You can see where I lifted up that color. And now I'm going to add a little bit of the picked raspberry distress ink. So I'm bringing in my ink pad, I smushed it on my mat, and then I'm going to use a fan brush. When you are spattering, whether it's with a nozzle, whether it's with a paintbrush, the each one is going to give you a different texture, a different sized splatter. The fan brush that I have is going to give me a very fine splatter of that picked raspberry. And then, of course, I picked up the rest of that ink with that panel. If I were to use a bigger brush, I would get bigger splatters of the paint or the ink onto this panel. So the size of your brush is going to matter. Here's a look at the die set. There are two different dies, one for the flowers, one for the leaves. I'm going to cut out just the flowers. Now, I did create my leaves off camera. I used the same technique that I'm going to show you, but what I really wanted to focus on here is not only layering color, but the fact that the order in which you lay your color down is going to change the effect. So as we mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm using the three same base colors for each of my peony panels. So I took that die and the panel over to my die cutting machine, and I'm just going to quickly run that through. I wanted to show you all of the pieces. There are a lot of really small pieces, which if you're using solid cardstock, it's going to really change the tones of the colors. So you might want to use some lighter ones in some areas and darker ones. For me, I used the dimension, and with all of these layers, I did end up building my peonies off camera. If you are interested in seeing how the peonies are built, I would be very happy to share a video over on my channel showing how these peonies are built with the foam tape, how I put them together. Just leave a comment in the comment section letting me know, and then I'll answer back and let you know when I upload that video if that's something that you're interested on. But again, for the sake of today's video, we're just talking more about layering color. So that was panel number one. Here's panel number two. I'm going to spritz it with some water. This time I'm starting again with the saltwater taffy, and then I'm going to bring in that distress spritz in picket fence. Because the spritz is not going over another color, it's on the white, you're going to be able to see it a lot more. I'm still going to get that shimmer, but that picket fence or that picked raspberry is going to show up. So this panel is definitely going to have more of the pink tones. I'm going to concentrate more on that pink color. I'm going to add a little bit of the picked raspberry. I'm going to tap on some water using the nozzle of my distress sprayer, spritz that picked raspberry, and then we're going to smush it onto the panel. You can see that I'm getting more movement. With the first panel, I was going for a higher concentration of color, and so I was layering color upon color. For this one, it's going to be a little bit more subtle because I'm not adding as many layers to it. Here I'm adding some splatters of the saltwater. No, wait, that's not the saltwater taffy. That is the mica stain cocktail party. And then I'm going to add a little bit of water to get some movement. I'll pick some of that up just to get a little bit more texture. The most time-consuming part of this is just drawing in between each of the layers. So here I have that carved pumpkin distress oxide. I do want that orange in there. I want everything to tie together. I just want each of the flowers to look different. So I just tapped on with the nozzle some of that carved pumpkin. And I'll dry this panel, and then we're going to move on to panel number three. So you see that I have that carved pumpkin on my mat, and I'm going to spritz this with a lot of water. Adding that water is going to change the color. It's going to lighten it, and you can see now that I have more of a yellow instead of the orange, and that's because that water diluted the concentration of that color. And we also have that pigment in there, which is reacting with the water. color. I'm going to add some of that saltwater taffy to this background, and I'm going to add a little bit of water to get some more movement. And wherever you get too much ink or too much water, you can certainly use a cloth to pick that up. So here is that distress spritz. And again, I'm just tapping that on, drying in between the applications. I'm going to use some picked raspberry, break it up with my finger, add a little bit of water to that, and here we come back in with that fan brush. This time I'm going to add texture. So you see how I'm touching that fan brush and you're seeing where I'm getting that texture onto this panel. Now when I die cut it, you're not even going to notice that it has that fan brush on it. It's really going to break up with the die cutting. So I'm going to add some of the carved pumpkin, and unfortunately I spilled a little bit of it and I didn't want to create any more panels, so I went ahead and picked that up. And then I'm just going to spritz this a little bit more, and you can see that this has more of the orange and the yellow and the pink. The one to the left is more of the pink and the saltwater taffy with a touch of the orange. And then of course that first panel was that really vibrant um, orange. So I'm going to add some layers of water. We're going to pick this up. I'll add a little bit more layer of water because I do want a little bit more of that water texture on this panel. That's one of the beauties. And then through the magic of filmmaking, we have all three of our peonies cut out. You can see all the different colors. I am going to do monochromatic. So the orange flower is going to be orange, the pink, pink, and the yellow, yellow. But I did want to mention that you certainly could mix and match the pieces for a different look because all of them incorporate the same colors. Here we have the Diamond Dazzle Meraki Shimmer plate. This is a foiling plate, but I did use it with my die cutting machine to emboss. So I used a rubber mat with that to emboss that image onto my panel. And then there I have completely put together my peonies. Again, I used foam tape between the layers. I also used foam tape on the buds. I'm going to cut this down to 4 by 5 1/4 because I did do the embossing with this. When I cut it down, I am going to have a little bit of two of the triangles kind of cut out, but I figured that just added a little bit more interest and texture to my card. I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch top folding card base, and I did take a white piece of accent opaque 110-pound cardstock. It was 8 1/2 by 11, and at the 8 1/2 inch side, I just went ahead and cut it right down the middle at 4 1/4 inches. Used my score buddy to score it at 5 1/2 inches to give me my card base. So this panel is going to be slightly smaller. I really like that look. If you wanted to add more dimension to this card, you certainly could add foam tape to the back of this embossed panel. And we are going to start arranging our flowers. Now, for those leaves, I went with 3 different greens. I started off with Distress Spray in Bundled Sage. I added Distress Oxide in Twisted Citron. Of course, I used a lot of water and splatters in between. I added splatters of Mowed Lawn to complete those leaves. So those are the 3 colors that I used. That Mowed Lawn was the ink and not a spray. I'm going to arrange these. I like the theory of threes, so I kind of have a little triangle there. I will, the flower to the left is going to face more towards the left. The flower at the bottom is going to be more straightforward, and then the one on the right is going to be angled more towards the right. And you can see all 3 of those flowers are unique and beautiful, but look at what a beautiful bouquet they make together. I created 2 of the buds, one pink, one from the orange. And then I'm going to tuck my leaves, again going with a triangle. So we're going to add 2 over here on the left. I will add 2 over to the right, and then I will add 1 in between the rose buds that are going to be atop of the top 2 flowers. If you like this video, I would absolutely appreciate it if you would give it a big thumbs up. Those thumbs up really does let the owners at Crafty Meraki know that you enjoyed the video that I created. It also helps with us getting our videos out to more people. So I want to thank you in advance for clicking that thumbs up. I also wanted to mention that I will link all of the products in the description box below. Again, if you're interested in seeing how the peonies were built, I would be more than happy to put a video together for you showing that. I can do that over on my YouTube channel. I will have my YouTube channel linked in the description box below as well if you're interested in that. Just leave a comment and let me know that you're interested in seeing how the flowers actually are built. And again, I'll comment back to you and let you know when that video is up if it's something that you're interested in. I decided not to go with a sentiment. I thought those peonies were just too beautiful to cover up with a sentiment. Here's a look at all of the dimension, the shimmer, and the beauty of these peonies. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching today. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for watching.